Time now to bring in our panel of political commentators. This week, joined by Liberal commentator Susan Smith. Kate Harrison is a Conservative commentator, and Kia Vaishnaw-Jaffe is an NDP commentator. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Susan, look, let's begin with the criticism we heard from the Green Party leader, Annamie Paul, calling on Canada to cancel its order of vaccines from COVAX. She says accepting those vaccines is an embarrassment to Canada. What's your view?
Well, it seems Canada's damned if it does and damned if it doesn't. First, we're being screamed at because we don't have enough vaccines quickly enough, and then we're being screamed at that we're optimizing what is possible because of our $400 million contribution to COVAX. It's my understanding it has to do with the AstraZeneca vaccine, which we don't have here yet in the country. I can see why people might be concerned about it, but I think that it's important to understand the context of what COVAX is. So do we want the vaccines that we are supposed to have as a country? If that's the case, then as a country, any country that's contributed can draw on COVAX.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
I mean, Kate, I think the Conservative leader wouldn't say today, Aaron O'Toole, if he would cancel Canada's COVAX vaccine order. Is Canada wrong to accept these vaccines from the COVAX pool, or does going for them now underscore what else might be wrong with the vaccine rollout in this country?
Yeah, I think that it does underscore the bigger problem here, and I think Annamie Paul's characterization of this as embarrassing is the right one. Just because you can criticize both decisions, having the vaccines now or whether or not we ought to tap into COVAX, doesn't mean that it's not worthy of criticism. Yes, the Liberals were going to get hammered on this either way, but I think what it ultimately does do is, Canada's coming across right now as being a bit of a double dipper. We've secured all these doses. We don't have them. So now we're going back to a pool that really was not designed for us, if we're being honest about the purpose of COVAX, to tap into those. And we would not be in this situation at all and having to rely on that pool for countries in the developing world had we negotiated better contracts, had we had domestic vaccine manufacturing capacity.
But Kia Vash, the government last fall, when announcing Canada's contribution, $440 million, made it clear at the time that, look, this is a two-stream idea. You put money in the pool to buy vaccines for poor countries that can't afford them, and you're allowed to draw out as well for yourself. But as Annamie Paul puts it, the thinking at the time was, the thought was this would be the great big pool where everybody went to get vaccines. It hasn't turned out that way. Countries are buying them on their own. The NDP leader wouldn't say today whether he would cancel the order for the vaccines from COVAX for Canada. So a lot of criticism, but no leaders except Annamie Paul saying give it back. Is Canada wrong here?
I think what's happening is very unfortunate and quite frankly unconscionable. This is vaccines that should be for the poorest countries in the world, not some of the richest. We are, after all, part of the G7. The rest of the world is not accountable for the failures of our own country to produce vaccines or purchase them on time. So I do agree that this is not the right move, and we have the firepower to take care of ourselves. We shouldn't be taking it out of the pot of money that exists for people who and the countries that just can't afford this vaccine.
Susan, does it underscore the deeper problems? And we're hearing more today about Moderna doses being delayed and coming to Canada when they do in smaller numbers. Is there starting to get a sort of feel of desperation around the vaccine rollout in this country?
I think it's been dialed up, the concern. I'm confident that we're going to get the vaccines, the 6 million vaccines that we're supposed to have from Pfizer and BioNTech by the end of March. We're also waiting to get the approval of the AstraZeneca vaccine and other vaccines. So it's going to happen. But the government has to cover as many bases as we can. And as you so clearly explained, Peter, the COVAX scenario was countries putting money in with development vaccine, the development of vaccine, and the ability to draw on that, as well as sharing with other countries. So it's our government's job to take care of our people, and we're doing that. And at the same time, that $400 million that we contributed is also going to help other countries. So we've got to look after our own population, and we're making, I think, responsible decisions. And the minute more vaccine production happens, I think you will see less of a drawdown in other places.
Kate, what do you say to that?
I think that there should at very least be a commitment to give any of the doses that we're set to receive later on back into the fund if we're planning on withdrawing from that fund now. That seems like the conscionable thing to do. I do think that the public attitude and opinion on this is shifting in real time. I think that there has been a swing in the last few weeks of how the public views the government's performance on getting vaccines to this country. And so, you can talk about the opposition dialing things up, but I think that certainly Canadians are starting to grow concerned. They're reasonable. I think they know we're not going to be on the same timeline as the US and the UK, but they certainly would expect that we would be on a faster timeline than some of the other countries that have leaped so far ahead of us.
Yeah, Kievash, when we talk about Canada being the only G7 country to access these doses at this point, it is true, though. I mean, it does underscore we have no domestic production here. So this idea of covering all the bases that Canada can cover, how do you view that?
I hear what Susan is saying. Absolutely. We have to take care of our population. But the fact that we have to go to this pot of money and vaccine that was saved for some of the most vulnerable countries in the world and tap into it in order to take care of our population just speaks to the fact that we have not been able to successfully take care of our own population. It is a symptom of the failure of the government to deliver on the vaccine side.
Susan, the House today, let's switch to something else. The House today debated a motion from the Conservatives to create this special parliamentary committee to focus on the challenges in the Canada-US relationship. Pipelines, Buy America, softwood lumber disputes, COVID cooperation. How useful would that committee be, Susan?
I don't know. We didn't have a special committee under Donald Trump. I'm not sure we necessarily need one under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If we were ever going to be aligned with an American administration, it would be now. But if the Parliament decides that that's what they would like, fine. We do have a Foreign Affairs Committee. They can study whatever they would like to study at any point in time, so they could go the route of Canada-US. We have always had issues with the United States, and we have never struck a special committee. And, I go back to my opening statement. If you were going to have one, Trump was the time to have it. But if Parliament decides that's what they want to do, that's fine. But I think it's important that we don't let parliamentary politics impede our ability to negotiate and do the right kind of deals with the United States that we need to do. There's grandstanding that happens in these committees. We know that. And we need to make sure that we don't dial things up that don't need to be dialed up.
Kate, how useful would this committee be?
I think it will be quite useful. There's a lot that's on the go right now with Canada-US relations, Line 5, Buy American, Keystone, obviously, a number of other things that are on the agenda. That could occupy the House of Commons agenda full time, just on its own. It makes sense to have it be part of a committee that can look at this more specifically. We saw that the government adopted a motion in the past on Canada-China relations. To me, this is a new era for Canada-US relations, and it makes sense that it have its own home via a special committee.
Kievash, is this a good idea?
I think it's going to be as useful as the Canada-China Committee, which was, quite frankly, completely useless. We have a Foreign Affairs Committee. I completely agree with Susan on this one. It seems to be just something that the Conservatives need to throw to the wind to change the channel on COVID and try to act like they're doing something about the energy sector that is squeezed due to economic and climate change. So I think that it's just a parliamentary ploy. Quite frankly, the Foreign Affairs Committee often looks at Canada-US relations, especially in the case of a new administration. I don't understand why we need to have a separate committee.
All right, let me finish on this. I only got about 10 or 15 seconds. Time is really tight here, but I just want to get the pulse from you guys where you think we're at in terms of a snap spring elections. Is that still a thing these days? Susan?
I don't think so. No, not unless we get a lot of vaccines into a lot of arms before the end of June.
Kate Harrison?
I want to hear Kivash's answer on this one. I think the ball's ultimately going to be in the NDP's court. If anything, I think the Liberals were thinking about it, but given the way things are shaping up on vaccines, it's hard seeing that come together now.
All right, Kievash, we're all waiting for what you think.
I don't think it's going to happen, but the NDP is in a better position than it's been in the past. And I think similar to previous situations, the Liberals would have to be able to work with the NDP if they want NDP support for their budgets or the next steps.
All right. Okay, let's see what the coming weeks bring us. Thank you all for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.